TikTok is being sued for a viral challenge that turned deadly. Picture this. A fun, innocent moment of scrolling through a social media app turns into every parent's worst nightmare. Your child, captivated by a viral trend, tries out a challenge they saw online only for it to end in an unthinkable tragedy. This isn't a hypothetical horror story. It's the real-life nightmare that unfolded for Nyla Anderson when she found her 10-year-old daughter, Nyla, lifeless after attempting an infamous Blackout challenge on TikTok. What started as a simple video recommendation ended in a parent's deepest fear and sparked a legal battle that could redefine the boundaries of tech responsibility. But this case isn't just about one family's devastating loss. It's about a social media giant that's now being forced to answer some tough questions in court. Could TikTok, with its billions of users and cutting-edge algorithm, really be held responsible for promoting content that led to a child's death? And what does this mean for the future of social media as we know it? Stick around, because we're going to take a look into a legal showdown that could change the rules of the digital playground forever. In December 2021, Nyla Anderson, a fun-loving 10-year-old, encountered a challenge on TikTok's For You page that encouraged users to choke themselves until they passed out. This wasn't a quirky dance or a harmless prank. It was a challenge that led directly to Nyla's death. Her mother found her daughter hanging from a purse strap inside their home, an image that no parent should ever have to witness. The grieving mother didn't just mourn her loss, she took action. The mother sued TikTok, arguing that the platform's algorithm actively promoted this dangerous content to her daughter, leading to her death. This lawsuit is one that could redefine the boundaries of responsibility in the social media age. But how did we get here? How did a company like TikTok, with all its resources, end up facing such serious legal consequences? Let's dive into legal theories at play and why this case could be a game changer. Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, otherwise known as Section 230, is a golden shield of the internet. For decades, it has been the go-to get-out-of-jail-free card for online platforms, allowing them to dodge responsibility for content that's been posted by their users. But what happens when the platform itself starts promoting the harmful content? Well, that's where things are getting interesting. Section 230 was enacted in 1996 to protect budding internet companies from being sued into oblivion over every single thing their users posted. It was a well-intentioned move to foster innovation and free speech online. Fast forward to today, and we have massive platforms like TikTok using this law to shield themselves from any responsibility, no matter how reckless their actions might be. TikTok initially tried to hide behind Section 230 in their lawsuit, arguing that because they didn't create the Blackout challenge, they couldn't be held liable. A district court even bought the argument, dismissing the case. But the Third Circuit Court of Appeals recently decided, and they're not having it. They saw through TikTok's smoke and mirrors and reversed the trial court's decision. The Court of Appeals pointed out that TikTok's algorithm wasn't just passively hosting content. Rather, according to the Court of Appeals, it was actively promoting this dangerous challenge to Nyla. In other words, TikTok wasn't just a bystander, they were a participant. By promoting content through their For You page, the court ruled that TikTok's algorithm became a form of expressive activity. And guess what? According to the Court of Appeals, that doesn't fall under the protection of Section 230. So TikTok's legal shield is looking a little flimsy right now. But Section 230 isn't necessarily the only legal theory in play here. Let's talk about how product liability and negligence are also making things very uncomfortable for TikTok. You might think of TikTok as just another app, a digital playground where kids dance and share memes. But what if I told you that TikTok could also be considered a dangerous product? Yes, we're talking about product liability, something you might think is only reserved for defective toys or faulty electronics. But in this case, it's TikTok's algorithm that's being held on trial. Product liability laws are all about holding manufacturers accountable when their products are unreasonably dangerous. In this case, the product isn't a physical object, but rather the software that is TikTok. Specifically, the algorithm that decides what content gets shoved in front of what users. TikTok's algorithm is designed in a way that promotes harmful content, making it inherently dangerous. And let's not forget about negligence. TikTok arguably owes a duty of care to its users, especially when those users are children. The argument is that the company knew, or should have known, about dangers associated with challenges like the Blackout challenge. But instead of taking action to protect its youngest users, TikTok's algorithm continued to promote this deadly content. That arguably is a clear breach of their duty of care and is one of the foundations of negligence claims in this lawsuit. So the court finds that TikTok's algorithm isn't just a passive tool. Rather, it's an active participant in what content gets seen. And because it was designed by TikTok and authored by TikTok, the court rules that it's responsible for what happens. And if that content leads to a child's death, as appears to have happened in this case, TikTok might very well be on the hook. But there is one other layer to this mess, one that brings up the First Amendment into a conversation, so let's unpack that for just a moment. Whenever a big company like TikTok gets cornered, they love to whip out the First Amendment card. But it's free speech, they cry, hoping to distract everyone from the real issue. But does the First Amendment really give TikTok the right to promote deadly content to children? Spoiler alert, not so fast. TikTok's defense leans heavily on the argument that its algorithmic decisions are a form of protected speech under the First Amendment. The logic goes like this. TikTok algorithm curates content, and curation is an editorial decision, much like a newspaper deciding what stories to print. And since editorial decisions can be protected by the First Amendment, TikTok thinks that they also should be immune from liability. But here's where that argument falls apart. The Third Circuit Court of Appeals acknowledged that while TikTok's algorithm might involve some level of expressive activity, it doesn't automatically grant it immunity. Why? Because Section 230 of the CDA does not protect the platform's own speech. It only protects them from being held liable from content created by others. When TikTok's algorithm actively promotes harmful content, it's no longer just a neutral platform serving up someone else's idea. It itself is responsible for the speech it chooses to amplify. This isn't just about protecting free speech. It's also about holding companies accountable for the consequences of their actions. When the TikTok algorithm decided to push the Blackout challenge video onto Nyla Anderson's feed, it crossed the line from passive content hosting into active promotion. And that's where the First Amendment defense starts to really crumble. Here's the thing. TikTok didn't just stumble upon this deadly trend by accident. According to the lawsuit, they knew. According to the lawsuit, they knew about the risks, they knew about the deaths, and they knew about the consequences. And according to the lawsuit, what did they do? Pretty much nothing. That's not just negligence, that's a claim for reckless indifference, and it could cost them dearly. The court's decision didn't just hinge on the fact that TikTok promoted the Blackout challenge. It also highlighted that TikTok was well aware of the dangers associated with the challenges. They had the data, the warnings, the tragic stories of other children who had already lost lives. Yet, according to the court and the lawsuit, TikTok continued to allow its algorithm to push the dangerous content onto the screen of young users like Nyla. The fact that TikTok knew about the risks and did nothing isn't just a footnote in the case, it's a central issue. It shows a level of corporate irresponsibility that might be hard to defend. When you have a platform that's as popular with kids as TikTok, you don't necessarily get to plead ignorance. You have a responsibility to protect those users, especially when they're vulnerable children. So TikTok's inaction in the face of clear danger is just another nail in the coffin of their legal defense. But in the end, of course, this won't be about just one company. It's about setting an entire precedent for the entire tech industry. And that brings me to you. Because at the end of the day, these are the platforms we all use, and we, the users, help keep them in business. So now it's time for me to ask you some tough questions. First, do you think TikTok's algorithm is just a harmless way to curate content, or is it a ticking time bomb waiting to cause more harm? Second, is Section 230 still relevant today in the digital age, or is it just a convenient excuse for companies to dodge responsibility? And finally, should we hold TikTok accountable for promoting deadly challenges, or should we just chalk it up to the risks that are inherent on the internet? Drop your thoughts in the comment section below, because let's face it, this conversation is one we all need to be part of. Until next time, I've been Uncivil Law, and remember to keep it uncivil out there.